Okay, World of Warships. 3 clips, 1 file. 35 minutes of me talking over a game. Because apparently I really love the sound of my own voice. Or something, I don't know. At the start here, the ship markers for friendlies have kind of bugged out a bit. The destroyer icon for the friendly off to my left is a bit further ahead of him than he actually is. So we're starting off with the Clemson. This is the Tier 4 US destroyer. And frankly, its torpedoes are terrible. I think I've got like a 5.5 or 6k range on them. It's nothing special. The problem is that my detection range is something like pretty much 6-7 kilometers. So by the time I am able to fire my torpedoes, you can see me. This is kind of a good thing for the enemy, because you'd think that if they see a destroyer that close to them and it's American, they just turn away. That doesn't always happen. Most of the time they just keep going, thinking, nah, I'll be fine. Yeah. These clips will kind of show why a lot of people like to claim that torpedoes are OP. But they're not OP. People are just stupid. Okay, that's not particularly fair. People just don't pay attention to their surroundings. I've had a lot of people sort of say, well, not directly to me, but I've seen the comment regularly that in comparing this to World of Tanks, for instance, that this is much faster paced. I don't think that's the case at all. World of Warships, it can take quite a few minutes before you get within range of anything to shoot at. You know, I'm doing close to 30 knots at this point, and I haven't fired my guns yet, because I'm in a destroyer. It's kind of pointless. I haven't even lobbed torpedoes yet. I'm just sort of blindly firing them at that point. I have no idea why I really fired them then. Maybe it was just to sort of goad him into, I don't know, turning away. If you're paying attention when you're watching nearby enemy destroyers, you can actually see the splash of water when the torpedoes are launched. I mean, those don't have a hope of hitting anything. Good thing about destroyers, though, is that torpedoes are reloaded pretty quickly. And in the case of this destroyer, I have 2 turrets, or 2 torpedo turrets on each side, and they're armed with 3 torpedoes each. So I can basically turn, fire torpedoes, turn again, fire off another batch, and then run. Run! And I immediately hit repair there, because I can't afford to not be able to maneuver in a destroyer. It's the same thing if you lose your engine in a destroyer. You just cannot afford to be immobile. And it happens a lot. The number of times where I've had my engine taken out, I've immediately hit repair, started steaming away again, and then the next set of shots have come sailing in from whatever was firing on me, and taken out my engine again. That's pretty much the end of the match for you, because then they can just sit there firing on you, and you're screwed.
The enemy team has taken the lead.
In a destroyer, your strengths are pretty much the fact that you normally have a pretty high concealment rating. You can remain undetected for longer at much closer ranges. Your relative speed, you're generally a faster ship, and the fact that you have torpedoes that reload much faster than they would on, say, a cruiser. However, trade-off is that you have relatively much less health and practically no armor. These things are pretty much made out of crushed up beer cans. At least that's what it kind of feels like at times. These little channels here between the islands. You see a destroyer going past it and then turning, or even just going past it, or even some cruisers that you know have torpedoes. Most of the Japanese ones, for instance. You know they've fired torpedoes. Like he has, just then.
Torpedoes, astern!
And our battleship figured out far too late. RIP battleship. The thing with the destroyer as well is you're not really meant to get into gunnery duels. Maybe, in the case of the American ones, firing on Japanese destroyers, certainly, because their guns are shit. Their turrets are atrocious. They just cannot bring them to bear in time to be able to have a gunnery duel with you. American turrets, on the other hand, can. That's not to say that the Japanese guns are complete garbage. They've generally got pretty good accuracy over range. It's just that, you know, close range gunnery duel with an American destroyer in a Japanese ship is a bad idea. Now, I get so lucky here. I genuinely do not know how I have managed to survive this match at this point. Taking something out on him. If I was watching this video full screen, I'd probably be able to tell what it was, but the preview window in Premiere is tiny. Perhaps if I get a dual screen set up at some point, I'll be able to fix that. I've lobbed torpedoes at that cruiser over there. I'm putting in a few shots as well. And I did not expect these torpedoes to hit. Surely he's seen them. I mean, the alarm would have been blaring by now. I mean, mine certainly is, because I'm about to hit an island. Oh, yeah, he wasn't paying attention then. Generally, long-range hits with torpedoes are rare. You don't see it that often. Most of the time, someone lobs a torpedo at you at long range. You don't expect it to hit, it's just... it's something to persuade them to go away. To make them turn away, to make it harder for them to bring all of their guns to bear. I think to my left here is an Otago. It's a premium ship. Just means it earns more credits and experience. I think it's an Otago. I can't remember. Anyway, we're both aiming to go straight through this channel and engage the ships here. I'm kind of hard-pressed to decide if this is me being a bit of a douche, or if it's him being a douche. Because I can't turn to bring my torpedoes to bear on that carrier. I can use my guns against them. I can certainly use my guns against that destroyer there. And you know he's fired torpedoes. Of course, my being here means he can't turn to starboard, or his right, for those who don't know. I'm trying to be mindful of that. I'm turning. Oh yeah, but it's too little too late. So I don't know if I should feel bad about that. I don't think I should. As you can see, that's what happens to an immobile destroyer. It go boom.
Main turret critically damaged.
Enemy destroyer sunk.
So I've lost a torpedo tube at some point, but that was on the other side, or it was damaged. But that's one on the other side, so I'm not overly fussed. There's their carrier. Citadel penetration. A lot of warships, you've got generally two types of rounds. You've got your high explosive and your armor piercing. High explosive is pretty much your go-to. Everybody has it. Double kill. I should probably track down the sound file for that and put that in whenever that happens. You know, once in a blue moon. But the two shell types, well, against destroyers, for instance, armor piercing is kind of a waste because, well, your rounds will go through the ship, certainly, but they'll go all the way through. There'll be little extra damage from shrapnel and spalling and whatnot. It's just through and through. This is a good and a bad thing. It just basically means, you know, it's a good thing for the person who's being fired at, because in the game mechanics, it means they take something like half the damage that the shell would normally do. For the person firing, it just means they've picked the wrong shell. I don't actually know who killed that carrier. I keep forgetting to check, and it probably just said who killed him down in the bottom there, but I don't know if he killed himself, because you see that. They're basically replicating World of Tanks scumbaggery. You'll see them, they'll turn their own torpedo bombers towards themselves. I love watching the AAA coming off of any of the ships in this game. Especially as you get higher up in tiers and they just get more and more and more AAA. It's like watching Star Wars with just the sheer number of tracers going up around them. I'm probably being a little stupid by sitting here and constantly lobbing rounds at this guy. I don't have a chance in hell of hitting, but... or rather, I don't really have a chance in hell of doing a lot of damage, but I'm basically constantly detected now. And he goes boom. The rest of that match was basically me steaming to this end of the map, trying to get some damage in on this last guy. I think it's a Phoenix. But it's not to be. Still, 4 kills. Good showing. So, now on to the Omaha. This is the Tier 5 US cruiser. I've sold this now. I kind of regret that, because it's not the best ship in the world, but it can be a hell of a lot of fun. The way I've got it set up, I'm not using the fully upgraded version, I'm using the middle one. Fully upgraded version loses 2 guns, it loses 2 torpedo launchers, and replaces them with more AAA. Tier 5? Good and a bad thing, but there are going to be matches where there are no enemy carriers, and frankly, I would rather have the offensive firepower of those 2 extra guns and those extra torpedo launchers. Again, because it's a low tier US ship, the torpedo range is pretty garbage. They're kind of last resort type things. They're not your primary weapons. Your primary weapons are your guns. I think I can bring to bear something like 10 of them on each side. That includes the 2 turrets at the front, the 2 turrets, one at the front and one at the back. And those have two cannons mounted in each turret. And they can swivel to face, pretty much. It's not a 180 degree arc, it's a bit larger than that, it's 200 something. But they can swivel to face and then lob rounds at everything that I don't like the look of. Tier 5, because I think I've only got 152mm guns. The guns do not have the caliber to really effectively use armor piercing against battleships, or... well, they can use them against other cruisers. Most of the cruisers you will encounter in the Omaha, it certainly makes sense to use armor piercing. But for the most part, you'll be using high explosive, because you can set things on fire. Fire is pretty. which doesn't in the least bit sound creepy. I think over there I'm lobbing rounds at a Phoenix. That's the ship that comes one tier before the Omaha. They're very similar. The fully upgraded Phoenix looks very similar to the Omaha. According to the in-game history, the Phoenix was basically a study to figure out new ship designs, but it was never actually built. But those designs, that investigation, were used as the basis for the Omaha, the thing I'm driving. Yeah, I know, it's a ship, you don't really drive it.
Enemy cruiser foundered.
Never underestimate setting someone on fire in this game. If you can get them to burn from stem to stern, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. If you can get them to burn from bow to stern, that's front to back, you're basically going to be doing constant damage to them. That just ticks down until they put the fire out. If they don't put the fire out, they burn to death. Now they can put it out using damage control teams. They might have the skill on their commander that means they put out fires faster or something. That's okay. You just set them on fire again. Problem solved. And I just set him on fire again. I'll set a different one on fire, but you get the point. Sound of my own voice. So, to everyone who wants to say that, well, the Warships is faster paced, yeah, no. It certainly has its hectic moments. I think my previous video shows me dodging and weaving like a madman, but eventually I succumb. I do eventually die in that match. Here we go, that little channel again. He's on fire still, so he's obviously already used his repair ability. That little channel, you're going to see a couple of little blips. They should show up about now, I think.
Torpedoes deployed.
There we go. Yep, he lobbed some torpedoes. He only has one torpedo launcher per side. There's still the triple launchers, but yeah, not as effective. And I love doing this, because he will not see the torpedoes until the last second. And he can do some damage against me. He's knocked out my engine. And then he go boom.
Enemy cruiser destroyed.
Worth it. At that point, I probably could have sat there and just let my crew repair the ship instead of hitting the damage repair party thingy. I can't remember its name at the moment. Unlike all the tanks, those abilities are on a cooldown instead of being something you only get to use once. Which makes sense. I am on a ship, not on a tank. I have far more resources. I would have a crew of a few hundred, maybe 1,000 or so on something like the battleships or carriers. Taking out some of his secondaries there. You can see I'm doing very little damage per hit with high explosive. And that's kind of inevitable. Battleship, it's pretty heavily armored. Doing a lot of damage per shot with high explosive is not going to be expected, even battleship to battleship. Battleship's kind of screwed here. If I can set him on fire, Because he's already used his repair ability. I set him on fire before. I'm just constantly knocking out modules and secondary batteries and anti-aircraft guns, everything on his ship, just constantly. There we go, he's on fire again. Looks like someone else has set him on fire. He is burning. I could only imagine what this would look like if this were a nighttime match, which aren't in the game. They probably will never add them. They don't want to add that sort of thing to World of Tanks, so I don't see them adding it to World of Warships. And another fire. And he just burns up.
Battleship sunk.
I should probably actually find something to talk about when I do these videos. I've been planning to do a like gaming topics video or something, or a few of them, like topics like gaming nostalgia and, you know, where I started off with gaming and just random stupid shit like that. I mean, not entirely stupid, but, you know. I would avoid topics like Gamergate. I'd probably end up broaching them in some way, but I wouldn't directly address them. Controversial opinion. Gamergate in itself is not the problem, it's society and how we raise everyone. Controversial opinion, you know, just saying. That's pretty much the limit of what I would approach that sort of topic on. I don't even think I'd do world news because, frankly, there are enough sources of that for you to get your own opinion. I probably wouldn't even talk about, like, stuff going on in my life, like research-wise or anything like that. But I need to find or record clips of different games. Because right now I'm only really playing 2 or 3 different games. I'm not playing that much. With 35 minutes of one game is kind of going to be boring for most people. There are going to be some who enjoy that sort of thing. And the rest of them, well, probably not. Plus, it'd be a good way to get rid of my Steam backlog. More incoming fiery goodness. That carrier's on fire, so it can't launch or recover any aircraft. And I just get slammed from something off to port, off to my left. And again. I think it's an Otago to my left. And he punches my ticket. In World of Tanks, if you get ammo racked, you can blow your turret off, basically. But in World of Warships, you just slowly sink to the bottom, leaving behind a small oil slick. Sometimes the ship breaks in half, and sometimes it just sinks. I think they've actually done a better job of player death as such in this game. So we're on to our final clip. Onto the Wakatake. Wakitake? Wakataka? Wakatake? I don't know. I'm sure someone will correct me and tell me how wrong I am. But, you know what? I don't actually care. And that's not a disrespect thing. It's just, literally, I don't care. As soon as I can, I want to get out of this damn destroyer. It's not that I don't like it. I just don't want to be at tier 3 anymore. I want to be up in tier 5 and 6 and beyond, where the game changes a bit, because you start seeing more carriers and the gameplay changes somewhat. Now the Wakatake, in contrast to the Clemson at the start, the Wakatake is very much all about its torpedoes. I think I've got a 7-kilometer range on these.
Torpedoes, astern!
But my detection range is something like 6 kilometers. Those torpedoes probably fired from an American destroyer. Probably, I don't know. In contrast as well, the Japanese ships, they don't always have the launchers on each side, they usually just have the centerline launchers on a turret that can swivel either way. But it feels like they reload faster.
Torpedoes to port!
In closed beta as well, it used to just have the sonar type noises, which you can sort of hear there. It never had the voice announcement warning you about torpedoes. I kind of liked that addition, because there are times where you could hear that beeping but you weren't really paying attention. It's kind of like an alarm in the morning. You can hear the alarm and there's always that little bit of confusion where you're thinking, what the hell is that noise? And then you wake up just that little bit more and you realize, oh, it's my alarm. I should probably do something about that.
Torpedoes, direct front.
You know, something other than turn it off and go back to sleep. You set the alarm for a reason, damn it. I mentioned at the start of the clip something about Clemson and firing blindly, and yeah. I'm not aiming at that guy. You can tell this because the little white indicator is still facing towards that guy who I've got targeted. But I figured I would just lob some torpedoes his way, mostly to dissuade him. He dies before I can even try to fire a shot at him. So now over there is a St. Louis, and those things against a destroyer can be lethal. But that's only if the St. Louis can see you. Yeah, I didn't expect any of those torpedoes to hit. One of them did, and it was enough. But yeah, the St. Louis. It doesn't have that very good in terms of detection ability. And at the same time, destroyers normally can hide outside of its range and see it. It has terrible concealment after all. But what it does have is a lot of guns, which it can fire very rapidly. If this thing gets a destroyer in its sights and fires on it within good range, it can basically just sit there and pepper the area with fire. So there's 3 destroyers going after the St. Louis at the moment, myself and 2 others. It has a lot of torpedoes. And that St. Louis is probably firing high explosive because that's his best bet. And he's making a somewhat smart choice because we're all pretty much identical targets. The only difference is in the amount of health we have. So I've got in 1 good hit there. I fire off shots. And it looks like my flooding took him out.
Cruiser.
He didn't stand a chance there. He had cruisers firing on him. He had 3 destroyers going after him. He was pretty much dead. That's the other problem with the St. Louis. It's slow. It can't run away. If it goes somewhere, it is committed to that point on the map. You know, if the battle shifts, the battle will shift without the St. Louis. It is very, very hard for the St. Louis to, well, keep up. It's a slow ship. It's also one of those ships that's really annoying to fire at as a battleship. It's called a protected cruiser, or a semi-protected cruiser. It has heavy armor in some spaces, but in other spaces it doesn't. Now Jingles actually covered it in a video of sorts, where he basically discusses the fact that as a battleship with armor piercing, the caliber of your guns is such that, well, you're probably just going to over-penetrate. You're going to go through and through without doing any shrapnel or spalling damage or added damage to really use the full potential of your armor-piercing shell. But at the same time, it has armor just thick enough that it's going to mitigate the damage from your high explosive. So they're actually really annoying to kill, unless you have torpedoes. At which point, they're not annoying, they're hilarious. Because they can't run away, and you can sit just outside of their view range and just constantly fire torpedoes at them.
Problem solved, sir.
So I'm taking a lot of fire here. Maybe I'm being a little too ambitious.
Smoke screen set.
Torpedoes to starboard.
I think somebody else gets that kill. Yeah, my flooding damage would have done him in, but it wasn't enough. Now again, as I mentioned at the start, the guns on these destroyers, on the Japanese destroyers, the guns themselves are okay. They're decent accuracy, okay fire rate, they can do a good amount of damage when they hit. But the turrets they are mounted on are crap. So I was kind of debating here, do I launch torpedoes at this guy? And then it's like, well, he's on so little health that someone's going to end him anyway, so... And they just did. A valiant effort. So up ahead, we've got this battleship. It's basically a battleship and another destroyer. That's all that's left on their team. In another comparison between World of Tanks and World of Warships, this sort of matchup where you've got a heavy hitter and, say, a scout, which is kind of the role of a destroyer in this. And the battleships are kind of a cross between heavy tanks and artillery. But in World of Tanks, in that instance, these two remaining players would still have a decent chance of winning the match, of killing us. In World of Warships, that is a much tougher proposition.
Engine boost deactivated.
Because again, it's not so much about angling your armor, it's literally about not getting hit. And he got hit pretty hard. Here went boom. So now I'm coming up on our cap point. Now, I can't remember if he's a Japanese or an American destroyer. But either way, I'm not going to be doing a gunnery duel. Because again, my turrets are crap. I can't afford to do a gunnery duel. Unless I can get him at range and I'm sniping, that is the only way. So I fire a speculative torpedo. I've only got 2 torpedoes per launcher. They got no chance of hitting anything. I think at the time I was thinking, well, based on my own sort of mental arithmetic, he might continue going that way, but that doesn't make sense because there's a few of us over here and we are all out for blood. And that's that. World of Warships. All sorts of fun.